Well, I'm here today with my friend Jason Jones as we continue to investigate his work with the Vulnerable People Project and the other projects that kind of surround his work there. He's a film producer, an activist, and he is now sending a great article for publishing right as we speak. That's why his nose is buried in it. Welcome to the
Oh, sorry.
program, Jason.
Oh, I didn't know my face was already on. I usually they don't welcome you on until I don't see my face. Oh, here it is. This meeting is being recorded. Okay, now I see my
Yeah,
face.
now you're all under the record.
I
That's
didn't think I was on. I'm sorry about that, folks. Didn't mean to be rude. I was texting my assistant to walk in quietly.
oh, okay.
She's bringing me performance enhancing drugs. I must confess.
Is that how you're getting your energy going? You just got
I
all
drink
these.
a lot of cortados.
How many coffees a day does it take to make the Vulnerable People Project work well?
So I've had five already, and it's 1:39. I often will get a quad espresso. I call it the Hunter Biden. So I'm trying to get that to catch on across America. So if you go in your local coffee shop, you get a quad espresso, ask for a Hunter Biden. This can happen. I think we can make this happen.
Well, very good. So, you've always got a lot of great insights as to what's going on, particularly in the Middle East. And there's a bit of a media blackout right now. And it's sad. What does it profit a man to gain the world if he loses his soul in the process? That's what God taught us, right? He taught us
Ooh.
that when he was a
Yeah.
man. And yet here we are. How much of right wing media has anything to say about the Christians dying in Lebanon or Palestine? It's as if it's just the cost of doing business to get those book deals or that nice cush position on a media platform or radio distribution. I mean, how could you get 500 stations and talk about the plight of the Lebanese Christians in America? I mean, I don't think
Isn't that
that's going to
sad? Yeah,
happen.
good point. Yeah. No, I was in Mass last week and I run an organization, the Vulnerable People Project. I founded it in 2002, anticipating a series of Middle Eastern wars, especially in Iraq. And I was very much concerned primarily for the Christians in Iraq. And the idea of the Vulnerable People Project at the time, now this is going to sound odd to people, but it actually kind of worked. I mean, I'm a bit of a failure, but it works as best as I guess one could have hoped. The idea was to kind of harness the pro-life movement as sort of a blasting cap to influence the broader conservative movement to be thoughtful for the Christians in Iraq. Now, that was an absolute failure, I will tell you, but sort of the trudging along for a decade and a half from the invasion, occupation, withdrawal, the rise of ISIS, and the decimation of the first century Christian communities. It was like I had a dream, and it became a nightmare before my very eyes. But we have had a lot of successes in serving vulnerable communities and running influence campaigns. But our work in Gaza has been really heartbreaking. Just today, I found out that the director of our logistics partner was killed. And there's been a lot of death and a lot of dying and a lot of inability to get trucks into northern Gaza, where the Christian community lives. They live in northern Gaza, and they're being starved. They're being bombed. And now the churches in Lebanon are being bombed. Just this weekend, another church was bombed in Lebanon. 8 Christians died there. But I was at Mass last week, David, and you'll appreciate this. And I just turned 53, and that's not old, but it's old enough. And I was just, often as I get older, I feel just really bad about everything I did in my life. I got married at 18 as a young soldier and divorced in my early 20s. I just think about all the mistakes I made and all the people I hurt. And as you get older as a man, you think of your mistakes weigh on you in a way, you can 20, 30, 40, you never look back. And then all of a sudden 50, 60, 70, I think you start looking back a lot and thinking. But I was at Mass thinking, what makes me the saddest in life? Not the mistakes I've made lately, but the right decisions I've made. And one of those decisions was when I founded my organization, it was to stand with vulnerable communities when there was a social cost, when there was risk, when it was unpopular. That was our guiding principle, that we would look to serve communities that to serve came with risk, understanding that most organizations are focused on fundraising and garnering support. And so taking on unpopular causes is a very, very bad business model when you beg for money as a living. But that's what we do. But the hardest part of all of this is very thoughtfully, and I won't name names, but very thoughtfully, over the past 3 decades, I've worked to build relationships with people in positions of influence in media and entertainment and in politics and in government. And I've built relationships with very good and beautiful and decent people who have worked with me in Afghanistan and advocated for the Hazara and the Yazidi and the Uyghur for me. But it's become a very lonely affair as a conservative Christian, advocating for the Christians in Lebanon and the Christians in Gaza. And I've not become angry with my friends. And, Rene Girard, to me, is pastoral theology. I think I've said that to you. It's like he's my spiritual director more than anything. And I've been reading the epistles a lot. I've read Titus 1 about 50 times in the past 3 days. I had several flights, and I just kept reading the epistles over and over. And this is nothing new, but what Girard helps me understand is that the best people are swept away by mimetic contagions, by violent enthusiasms. And I will say, and I'm not going to say their names yet, because I'm sending a series of private letters out the next weekend or two that are going to be very detailed in explaining the genocide that's happening, the ethnic cleansing that's happening, the brutality that the people of Gaza are suffering and Lebanon. And then depending on their responses, I'm going to write open letters to them publicly. And but it's just been very sad that some of the people that I've respected the most have been on the wrong side of this. And I will say one person's name because his involvement in it is so obvious, if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is a man that I've greatly admired. His book 0 to 1 greatly influenced the organization that I founded. It really helped clarify for me what it is to found. I wanted to create a human rights organization that didn't exist. I mean, the reason I had the idea to found it was because I noticed that these very large NGOs kind of took a knee when there was a really serious social and financial cost to standing with the community. And but Peter Thiel, greatly influenced by Rene Girard, to know that he has a company, an AI program, Lavender, that the way as I understand it, effectively gives, pulling in bulk data, gives a social credit score to the people of Gaza. And then through another program called Daddy's Home, targeting officers will look at the social credit score given to them by Lavender and then target them when they're at home. Of course, they understand that most of these people will have families, and that's why they call it Daddy's Home. So they're not only killing the person with a bad social credit score, they're killing their family. And I think Lavender helps us understand why there's been so many journalists killed and so many young people posting their opinions on the invasion, the brutality of the invasion, the starvation, the ethnic cleansing on social media are being targeted because those social media posts or their articles that these journalists are writing are undoubtedly being pulled into Lavender, and they're affecting their scores. We just saw a journalist who was documenting the IDF's targeting of children and infants and babies, and she was targeted by a direct strike on her apartment, killing her and her newborn child, while the husband was going to get the birth certificate. And so to see somebody who calls himself a Girardian, as you and I do, is is most definitely the most generous philanthropist when it comes to supporting, promoting the works of Rene Girard, is involved in a very significant way and the greatest, most public ethnic cleansing in the 21st century. And, there was this, what did the Germans know and when did they know it? And I kind of always believed, just knowing how technology works and how people live their lives and how dictatorships work, that most Germans in most places in Germany had no idea what was happening, right? They had no clue. Now they knew that they had a vile, totalitarian, anti-Semitic regime. And they also knew that it was brutal and they would be afraid to talk if they knew anything. But we live in a liberal democracy where we can say whatever we want. We may be deplatformed, we may be debanked, but we're not going to be, not yet. Lavender's not going to target me yet. There's not going to be a drone strike at Jason Jones's house because of an article that I write critical of Peter Thiel and Lavender, or critical of the IDF, and it's I call it the infant destruction force. It's not going to target me, so there's really no fear. But here in our liberal democracy, we have to assume most people know. And in fact, there have been people that pretend not to know, and then I present them the information, and then they literally, almost unanimously, several beautiful souls, when presented with the information, have publicly repented of supporting the brutality of Israel. But most people will respond, well, just let's let Israel annihilate the Palestinians, and then we'll have peace. In other words, let's scapegoat the Palestinian people for centuries of European abuse to the Jews.
Yeah.
To make up for centuries. How did the Palestinian people become the scapegoat for European anti-Semitism? And then you look to Germany, where I'm wearing a Lebanese flag. This hat right now in Israel would get me, in Germany, would get me arrested. While the Germans feel so bad about what they did to the Jews, they will do it to the Palestinians, or to anyone that shows, as we know as Girardians, anyone who stands in solidarity with the scapegoat is going to be violently scapegoated themselves. So anyone who stands in solidarity with the Palestinians in Germany can expect that they will be brutalized. And forgive me for this 10-minute monologue. I apologize.
No, it's true. It's true that there's just, this is a very difficult thing. And really, I was just thinking what you said there, the Lebanese Christians and the whoever Jesus doesn't say, and I know you don't say this, but Jesus doesn't say, Christian lives matter more than Muslim lives. So let's be clear about that, or any other lie, right? He doesn't say that. But even, you emphasizing the Christian part of it is just to try to really emphasize how disgustingly hypocritical the Christian right is, or the conservative, whatever. All these new right, neocon, whatever flavor, evangelical, they're all quiet. And this new right thing is interesting to me because it was supposed to replace the neocons. I'm not going to mention all their websites. There's endless, but they were supposed to be the ones to replace the neocons. They were supposed to be the ones that were going to be against the stupid wars, the forever wars. That's their whole brand that got them where they're at, to be the intelligentsia of the Trump era. And yet here they are, just turning the eye. And really, it indicts the MAGA movement. I like Trump as a character, like I like on a movie, like I like that character. It's fun to watch. But really, honestly, there's some things that I think he's done that really seem heartfelt. But his whole campaign and movement right now is situated by scapegoating the Palestinians. It's like, you get to have your border at the cost of this. Well, don't look at the child on fire in Gaza. Don't look at the child on fire. No. You get to have your border. You get to have a little bit more free speech protection.
Don't look at the rape. Don't look at the sexual violence. Don't look at the sexual violence.
Yeah, look at even Elon Musk. His whole thing is built on the scapegoating of it's like, you get to have your free speech. You're like, oh, this is really great. We could really build something, but don't talk about that. The child on fire in Gaza does not get the same rank elevation and algorithm as anything. Let's just hands off of that. Hands off of that. Don't denounce that, and you'll get boosted in the algorithm, right? And you can have your free speech, and you can get rid of the Aurora gang in Venezuela. You get to have all that, but you can't touch that child. You can't redeem that child, right? You can't do that.
Well, that's why I'm grateful for you. When you called, they asked me to be on your show. I said, well, look, those of us who stand with the vulnerable at our own cost, we know it's grace. It's not us. I was just listening to an audio play written by Tim Gray, the Catholic apologist, on St. Francis. So I was listening to it on his feast day. It was a really beautiful play, and you can get it on Audible.
Yeah.
But sort of in the first act of the play, the young Francis his father hated that he had some sort of empathy or sympathy for the poor. And so he was mocking this homeless person in front of his dad, to impress his dad. But then he kind of ran down the street when the homeless guy left defeated and gave him a lot of cash. And his mother kind of saw it, side-eyed, saw it. And she said to her son, "What is wrong with you? Why are you attracted? What attracts you to the poor? What attracts you to the leper? What's wrong with you? And Francis says, what makes you think I'm attracted to them? I'm repulsed by them. I despise them. I don't want to be near them. And that's why I care for them, because it's challenging. It's hard. It's against my nature. And then his mother said, Francis's mother said, well, maybe one day you can love them because you're merciful and compassionate. And he said, I hope so. And I kind of feel like I'm in where the young Francis is. I'm not standing with the Palestinians because I have some big magnanimous heart. I'm standing with them because I am repulsed at the viciousness and cruelty and thoughtlessness of the rest of the world. So I'll do it. I would much rather be doing anything else than lighting my career on fire. I would rather do something much else than blowing up my donor base and limiting my ability to appear on all these media shows that I often appear. But I'm going to do it.
Is that already happening to you, or you just suspect it's going to happen to you?
No, it's happening a bit. Like, I'm very blessed with good friends, and I'm kind of relentless. Like, if you want to get rid of me, I'm going to chase you down the street. You're going to have to get a TRO. I'm going to work hard to maintain my relationship with you. But I've definitely noticed yes, there have been some major media outlets that the requests have just stopped. And nothing has been said. And I'm not even angry, because I shouldn't expect everyone to set their career on fire or lose their job as a producer or a talk show host or lose all of their supporters because they want to stand with the Palestinian people. But I cannot, just if tomorrow, in our lifetime, the tide turns, there are 17,000 dead children in Tel Aviv, as the crimes that the state of Israel has committed, not the Jews, but the state of Israel has committed. If it inspires anti-Semitic pogroms and violent enthusiasms of hatred, and the countries of the world turn on that little state and begin to pound it into oblivion and slaughtering civilians, I will stand with the people of Israel. I will stand with the vulnerable, and I will stand with the innocent, because that's what I am called to do as a Christian. When I was in Ukraine about a year and a half ago, I had said that, something about, to some Ukrainian folks I was with, that if you had invaded Russia, or if you were bombing and targeting Russian civilians, I would be delivering aid to the Russian civilians. And one of the men said, no, that's ridiculous. You're with Ukrainians always. And I'm like, no, I'm with civilians. I'm with women. I'm with children. I'm with the vulnerable. And what David, what Gerard has just really helped me is never to be surprised, So I know when the tide turns, we won't be popular. When anti-Semitism and the ethnic cleansing of the Jews from Israel becomes the thing, it becomes the mimetic contagion, when we will be hated. The people that love me today for standing with the Palestinians will hate me tomorrow. And a lot of the people that are cheering on the destruction of the Palestinian people will be the very, 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 very same people cheering on the destruction of Israel. And 30 years, I've just seen it happen too many times. And that's why I'm grateful for the gospel of Jesus Christ, and why Peter Thiel is so startling to me, is Gerard has really helped inoculate me to fear.
Yeah. Well, we can't co-sign on any kind of ethno-supremacist ideology. You can call yourself a Christian.
That's not true. I am a Filipino ethno-supremacist. I love the Filipino people. Maybe I'd say I would be the Malcolm X of the Filipinos, but you're right. Like, look, yes, in Titus 1, it talks about, hating ethnic people, calling them all liars, all filthy, all dirty. And we can't do that. What I love about the upper room, when the church was founded, when the Holy Spirit descended and knit together the body of Christ, it was like Greek and Jew and Arab and African and Asian, and they were all there. And we were all there. What is it with our faith? Our Lord said you have to be like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven, to a society that where children didn't have a voice. He knelt down next to a woman who was caught in the act of adultery. You wouldn't want to kneel down next to a woman caught in the act of adultery in New York City, let alone the Middle East today. Okay, that wouldn't probably be the best thing to do. You know, number one rule for your physical safety is don't ever get in the middle of a domestic dispute because it's not going to end well. Yet, Jesus Christ knelt down next to a woman in the midst of a violent contagion who was literally caught in the act of adultery. He stood with a Samaritan woman who stood with the Samaritan. The third temple stood with the woman who worshipped at the first temple, the Samaritans. This is beautiful. This is our faith. This is what it teaches us. This is why I don't like nationalism is great. Nationalism is very progressive. Nationalism, a lot of people forget, was this idea that we could all be a community. Even if we're different religions or different ethnicities, we could belong to a nation. And in the 19th century, nationalism was very progressive. But I am not a Christian nationalist. I'm a citizen of a nation state. Yes, and I'm a Christian. I often will get emails at VPP like, why aren't you doing things in America? We are. We just finished a movie to promote the dignity of the child and the womb in America. It's going to come out soon. We serve the homeless in America. We were very active in Lahaina. We do a lot of things here. We rescue Afghan interpreters for their American allies who plead with us and come to us to ask us to help their friends. We do. But I'm a Christian. And I'm glad you said it. I'm going to be very clear. Be very clear. The reason why we emphasize the Christians in Gaza and the Christians in Lebanon is to demonstrate the hypocrisy of Christian Zionism. But the reality is, and we are very committed to serving our co-religionists in Gaza and in Lebanon. Fulton Sheen says that the foundation of solidarity in the world is the love of one Christian in one part of the world for another Christian in the other part of the world.
But you don't make the Christians line up first in the soup line, so to speak, before
that's the foundation. It's not the end of it's not the end, right? Mm-hmm. So no, I don't look at a Palestinian child starving and ask to see if he was baptized. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's absurd. I don't look at a Christian.
Why is it? But why is it? What does it profit the American people to go along with? I don't understand. I'm going to read a comment I saw someone say about some of the videos of the atrocities against the kids in Gaza, just for you to respond to it as thoughtfully as you can here. It says, you can find videos of wartime atrocities and evil from most militarized cultures. And just like you and I are not co-signing with all the people that Bush and Obama have bombed with American drones, etc. And then some other comment. Our own government has committed much more widespread atrocities than wicked elements within the IDF. Look up the videos for what our government has done in other nations. Fill in the blank with any militarized nation's name, and you will find the same kind of videos.
Yeah. So you have more journalists have been killed in Gaza than in all of World War II. Okay. You've had more UN workers die in Gaza than all the conflicts since the founding of the United Nations. You have IDF soldiers. There's a real sickness in Israel doing TikTok dances and mocking the killing of children. In fact, an IDF soldier who made a video on TikTok mocking the killing of children just died in Lebanon. So we probably know where he'll be spending the rest of eternity. So yeah, it's really unbelievable. Dennis Prager and Eric Metaxas, and Eric Metaxas has done more than anybody in media for me in platforming my advocacy for vulnerable communities. But Eric Metaxas and Dennis Prager were discussing the catastrophe in Gaza. And, you know, they were saying, well, look at Nagasaki, look at Hiroshima. Here's the difference, by the way. First of all, one of my greatest influences is Elizabeth Anscombe, an analytical philosopher from the United Kingdom, beautiful woman. Everyone should look up Elizabeth Anscombe. And she was very early, like immediately critical of the United States for the use of the bomb. All of the Republican members of the Army Air Corps resigned when we began targeting civilian targets when we were bombing cities in Europe, right? Bishop Fulton Sheen, 6 weeks after, he was Monsignor Sheen at the time, Bishop Fulton Sheen was an Emmy award-winning television host in the early 50s, was one of the most, is a legend. And in the 50s, he was a household name. Imagine 6 weeks after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he gave a speech, Monsignor Sheen gave a speech at Catholic University of America condemning the United States. Imagine how brave that was when you had all of these people deployed. Now, the reality is when people are facing existential crises, they do awful things. But the reality is Israel's not facing an existential crisis, but I fear that they're pushing themselves into an existential crisis because they're sending a message to the world that this is going to end with one community being ethnically cleansed, period. And it's quite frightening. I just talked to a retired Marine, man I respect, was really not aware of what was happening in Gaza as I was enlightening him with the statistics and the numbers. He said, well, I'm anti-war, but I think if we are going to go to war, we should obliterate our enemy. And I said, well, I didn't know that ethnic cleansing and genocide was a Christian or an American value. And he said, well, that's what I believe. Something very strange is happening. And using the greatest atrocities in American history to justify what Israel is doing with American taxpayer dollars is going to lead to America doing really awful things. And I'm not a fan of Vladimir Putin. He's a brutal thug, KGB officer. But he had a very poetic line this week where he said, the Western elite are gorging themselves with money and human flesh. We are. I mean, we just are. You can see that Ukrainian boys are being forcibly conscripted. This billions of dollar grift that's happening in Ukraine. There's billions of dollars of grift that's happening in Israel. And but it's proving the lie. It's proving the lie. Christian Zionism, if you're a Christian Zionist, you are no Christian at all. And I can get into that. If you are a Christian nationalist and you're American firster, but you're for sending billions of dollars of American taxpayer money to a little nation state to annihilate small minority community living in a tiny strip of land where 50% of the population is under 18, you are not America first. You are a naive, simple person who is easily manipulated by influence campaigns by powerful actors and nation states. You are very simple, childlike, easy to manipulate. And
I would say childish, not childlike.
Yeah, childish. And you're probably going to be swept into hell for eternity because the lies of Christian Zionism will inoculate them to even repent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why is that? I don't understand, because the generation that believes in dispensationalism is older, and a lot of the younger folks who are 50s and under don't relate to that theology. These non-denominational seeker-sensitive churches don't really talk about that anymore. So where are they getting I think it's not just a theological thing. I think it's some kind of it's media, and
it's narcissism. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
No, it's entertainment. Like Jonathan Cahn is entertaining.
Yeah.
His books, it's like playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
But I have them around here somewhere. These books are really vile. These books one day will be in museums. There will be a genocide museum on the war in Gaza. There will be. And this book will be there. Yeah. This guy, Jonathan Cahn, his books will be in a Holocaust museum one day. Yeah. I guarantee it. What he says about the Palestinian people is utterly and absolutely unbelievable. So it's like dragons. Well, it says that the Israelis are being punished for not annihilating the Canaanites, as if the Palestinians descend from amongst other peoples, the Jews that accepted Jesus. But you know what Paul tells us? He tells us, don't talk to people caught up in genealogies. And he says, Jewish fables. That's what Paul says. I don't care about your genealogy, Hitler. Okay? Oh, you're an Aryan 7 generations back? Congrats. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, whatever. I don't care if you're Ashkenazi. or Sephardic. I don't care if you're a Druze or if you're Arab. I don't care. You have equal dignity. You're created in the image and likeness of God. You're the most beautiful thing created in the cosmos. Do you know, a friend of mine, and one day on my birthday, I got a letter from a friend of mine, very wealthy, powerful woman who's Jewish. And she wrote me that she thought I was her friend, but all my posts on social media have realized that I hate her. And I said, can you please send me some quotes and that would demonstrate that I have any hatred towards you? So she had all these quotes of me advocating for the dignity of Palestinians. That's it. There are people out there, Christian Zionism, the supremacist ideology, says what? That their lives are not equal. And so people are really offended. They think it is somehow bigoted to say Jews and Palestinians have equal dignity. That is somehow offensive. But
that's
what is
literally the entire point of the gospel. It's Jesus encountering people who get pissed when he says the leper has just as much dignity as you, Pharisee.
The leper,
we're back to the same problem 2,000 years later, and this time it's mostly lots of people who say they know the most about what Yahweh's got to say or got the most about what Jesus has to say, and they're doing the same damn thing, aren't they? They're telling people, if you tell me that leper is decent and dignified and doesn't deserve a fiery death, then you hate me. God,
yeah, because that leper can kill us. That leper's dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did Paul say? I just shared it. There is no partiality in God. Oh, that's very offensive. God prefers me. Oh, sure he does. Sure he does. I'm sure of it. Of course.
What about the feeling that it's just like, well, I mean, what if it's just the feeling like, it's just, it's just too obfuscated to bother my conscience. I can't stop it. Both parties, nominees want more of it. It sounds like, it sounds like Trump wants to end the conflict, but he also uses all this vicious rhetoric about unleash Israel. I'm like, what? I thought they were already unleashed. What does that look like?
What does an unleashed Israel look like?
Yeah. And then he's constantly
chemical weapons today. Israel used chemical weapons today on United Nations peacekeepers.
Wow.
Israel and the countries of France, Ireland, Russia, and Italy are on war footings with each other. The U.S. press isn't telling you this, but let me tell you, Israel is provoking war with Russia, Ireland, Spain, and the Irish are feisty.
Yeah.
You don't know about this?
Yeah, I didn't know.
They're not moving their troops. They told Israel, bring it.
Yeah.
I'm Irish.
Aren't they completely owned by whatever's going on with the EU and all that and NATO and all that? I don't know.
The Irish are an interesting folks, man. I'm Irish. You look Irish or Scottish, we're cousins. I'm Scottish, mostly Scottish, but look, it's quite sad. But for me, again, it's a spiritual exercise. And again, I'll go back to Gerard. We always think that we're different. We think that we lived in a different time. We don't. I see somebody shared with me today from a liberal commentator. Forgive my Walmart glasses here. Quite embarrassing. My friend sent me this today. Listen to this. Just now, this just broke. Prime Minister Netanyahu has approved plans on attacking Iran. Okay, yay, that's going to go great. Israel will attack Iran before the U.S. elections. Okay, but listen to this. This is from, where is she? Her name is Brianna Wu. She's a progressive commentator. Wars are tragic. People die. So it's unwise to start them. The reason this conflict has raged for 76 years is Israel has never been allowed to win, and their opponents are always allowed to draw. It's hard to see civilians die. Oh, I'm sure it is. It churns my stomach too. Oh, you're so thoughtful. But the truth is Israel has every right to defend itself, and their theocratic Islamist opponents are committing war crimes by operating in civilian areas. It's the Gaza Strip. Mossad headquarters is in the midst of a civilian neighborhood. Iran landed a direct attack on their headquarters. No civilians died. And guess what? An American journalist reported on that, showed footage of it, and then got arrested and beaten. An American journalist is in prison right now for highlighting the fact that Iran is only targeting military targets. Now, I don't want to be called an apologist for Iran, but I'm just stating the facts. And then Israel and the Western press say their attack was a failure because all they hit was airfields and military targets. So that what they're saying is a success would have been setting Tel Aviv on fire. No, that's insane. That's insane. We don't target civilians. How is it that Iran is more thoughtful in its targeting than Israel?
Yeah.
Or the United States? Look, I was a big critic of Obama's drone war. You know, George W. Bush, for all his problems, I think killed one civilian with drone strikes, and Obama killed like thousands and hundreds of kids. The world was silent about that. And I wrote, it was probably my most successful article at the time, called Flying into the Abyss, Obama's Drone War, where I had leaked to me the names of all the children killed, and I published the list of all the names, their ages, and their countries that were killed by Obama's drone war. I was criticized for stating that. But no, what's most startling is that from the left to the right, from Fox News to CNN, there is apologizing for everything Israel does. And the only people standing against Israel are committed Christians, really thoughtful, well-educated Jews, former IDF soldiers, academics, like Norman Finkelstein, right? And then these kind of oddballs on the left, like Code Pink, and I celebrate them. You know, I was just on a plane and I had a Palestinian VPP flag hat on. And the lady on the left of me and the man, or the lady was to my right, the husband was to my right, the wife was to my left. Not that it matters. And I'm like, how did I get the middle seat? Y'all, how did I get the middle seat? I'm Global Services for United, and I'm in the middle seat between this couple. And they looked like oddballs in a good way. They were eccentric and beautiful. She had just done her fingernails to Beetlejuice. And she was a math, whatever that is. She's a professor of math, and her husband was a professor of Spanish. Okay. And they saw my hat and they saw my bracelet. I love going out looking like the hardcore right-wing Pat Buchanan, conservative, Republican, anti-abortion, traditional marriage, Catholic I am, with my Palestinian flag hat. I love it. So then I bend my hat like, you know, the guy that I am, Midwestern conservative boy. And so here I am between these two like Antifa-like folks. And we began talking, and they were just humane and beautiful. We had just this wonderful conversation. And it's just interesting that the only people standing with the Palestinians at this point are outcasts, or people absolutely willing to be an outcast. And it's across the ideological spectrum as well. So you have oddballs and outcasts from the right to the left. You have then you have the what I call the beautiful people. Not that they're beautiful, they just think they're beautiful. The thin-sewed ghouls of the hive mind from the left to the right, singing off the same sheet of music. You know, it's very interesting to me.
Why are they doing this? What are they sold on? Why they're doing this?
It's the meta-contagion.
But why are they? But what Steelman it for a second? Why I just need another reality check from whatever they're saying. So why do they need to do what they're doing in Gaza and Lebanon and all that? What are they doing? What's their strongest argument? They're saying they just need to protect themselves, or
they have the right to protect themselves.
I don't get it. They're swinging punches at everybody in the Middle East, right? And that's supposed to protect them. I don't get what is like their. I'm trying to Steelman their side for a second.
Well, I mean, clearly what they're doing is they want to permanently and ethnically cleanse Gaza.
What does ethnically cleanse mean? Let's just set the terms.
They want no Palestinians left in Gaza, period.
Really?
100%. No doubt.
For what reason?
They want it.
For why? Why?
Well, they don't believe in God, but God told them so. I don't know. I mean, don't.
What's so good? Is there like a lot of resources there? Is it a really nice beach? Like, I mean,
I hear all these theories about what they've discovered under Gaza.
Yeah.
I just think that they will.
But why risk all these wars and everything just for that little bit of land? Like, what's the point of killing people reality, to get that land? Like, you could get Idaho or something.
Well, no, here's the reality, right? I'm a conservative. You're a conservative. Conservatives' words mean things. Israel is a colonial settler state, yes? I mean, by definition, the early Zionists call themselves colonists and then settlers. They have settlers. It's a colonial settler state. And it is, by definition, an apartheid state. So when you're running a colonial settler state, acting as the USS Israel for the United States, it's like an aircraft carrier, you've put yourself in a very precarious situation. So you're looking at having to have endless wars or to completely shatter the regimes around you and to have the only functioning nation state surrounded by a sea of poverty and social unrest. And, the wars, starting with the war in the invasion of Iraq and our attempt to topple Assad and the color revolutions, all of this led to a mass exodus of people from the Middle East to Europe. Now, the same people pushing for those regime change wars that led to Europe being flooded with migrants are the same folks banging the drums to ethnically cleanse Gaza and to, don't worry, it turns my stomach too to see children die. How do you even write that? Do people not know how quick the ball of history bounces? That's
the thing. They don't think it's going to bounce on them in any serious way. They don't think so.
Yeah, the ball's going to bounce on them. And even if it doesn't, I believe in God. You know what? I don't care how history sees me because I won't be there. I won't be in history, but I will be in eternity. So really, I don't care if the ball does or doesn't bounce on their genocide, but it's going to bounce in eternity. I can tell you what.
It's funny how if the concept of God, if you believe really much in God, you'll do heinous things. But if you believe in another type of God, you'll have a total renunciation of it. It's funny how, like, with the belief of God, it unlocks one or the other,
You nailed it.
Yeah.
You nailed it, brother. And I hate to say it, both Islam and Judaism, their God will lead them to violence. Our God.
So what about the pragmatic argument someone might make, which is, look, both sides are filled with villains, and why do we need to be empathetic in the middle of that hive mind? Let them fight it out, and we kind of wash it out like, yeah, there's mostly villains and a lot of good innocent people, but that's what villains are going to do to one another, and let's just be done with it. Like that mindset.
Deal. Okay. So our money's not there. Our weapon systems aren't there. Yeah. American companies aren't allowed to sell weapons to either side because right now it's our weapons and our money on both sides.
And half our presidential debate airtime is dedicated to that issue. Is that not going to happen anymore?
Yeah. Senator Langford, enough about the hurricane.
Hurricanes are destroying. But the first question we must ask Israel and Iran. I mean,
because they give me more money than my constituents.
Sponsored by.
Go back to who I really represent. I mean, it's insane.
It's such a joke.
I said to my wife, even our hats, I love these hats. This hat was designed for us by a military man who supports our organization. He's like, you work in so many countries. You should have hats with Velcro that you put your different patches for your different teams in different countries. But it's kind of like a military hat. I'm a veteran. I'm like a typical old veteran. I have my old hat. I have my Army keychain. I said, I'm so sick of violence and war. I want nothing. I have my rugged rosary made of 550 cord as a soldier. Reminds me of Ranger beads, as old infantryman. I'm like, you know what? I said to my wife, I'm not using my rugged rosary anymore. I'm using my Fulton Sheen Rosary of the World now. That's all. I said, it's it, because I'm so sick of violence and war. And I'm so sick of muscular Christianity, which is nothing but impotent, weak, pathetic, goofball Christianity. All these guys wearing their tactical watches, and they're on their testosterone replacement, and they're wearing their grunt t-shirts. Dude, we're called to be gentle, to be kind, to be humble, to be merciful. This is real strength. I want to know, can you kiss a leper? Can you drive a truck into Gaza like those? I love the World Food Kitchen people. Look, I am your typical conservative Republican guy. You go see the World Food Kitchen people, they look like what they look like. They're cooks, they're chefs. Tatted up, liberals, just like goofballs, the bravest people on earth. and they were murdered by Israel. They don't have on G-Shock watches. They're not on testosterone replacement therapy. They're not 55 years old, obsessed with their biceps and their bench press, taking Brazilian jiu-jitsu for the first time. By the way, I want you to do jiu-jitsu. My office is in an MMA gym. This is an MMA gym. You probably could tell. My assistant just came in the corner. She just finished doing jiu-jitsu. So here's the deal. But we want to be kind. We want to be humble. I hate war. There have been 500 IDF soldiers die or so. 3,000 or so Hamas soldiers die or so. 40,000+ civilians, 17,000 children. This is what war is. Where is our statesmen and women? Where are generals?
Thomas Massey. Let's give him props. Thomas Massey. There we go. We got one.
The last man.
I got one guy, and he was only there because Ron Paul and Rand Paul put him in.
The last man in elected office that I respect. I tell you what.
I got one more pushback for you.
Okay.
And then
did I answer your first pushback, or did I just babble?
I don't remember. I think you did.
I outsmarted you by babbling.
Yeah. So here's the they would cut your mics if this was a presidential debate, but it's okay. You would keep going. So what about the people who, all right, this is kind of a weird thing, but it's true probably for somebody. What about the people who are like, okay, look, Jason, it's nice for you to talk all tough about pro-peace and all that, but do you understand that I have to support a certain position or else my family is threatened? You don't know what goes on behind scenes. What if that's what's going on with these presidential candidates and politicians? Maybe not all of them. Maybe most of them, you can buy them off with money and fundraising and appearances on nice television channels and book deals or whatever, and speaking engagements at big events. But what about some of them who may have the same concept of ethics you do, but maybe they got a creepy knock at the door. Maybe they got a threatening letter that look legitimate, that my family's in danger if I don't go along with this atrocity. So if I have to pick between some abstract, consideration of someone far away that I'm not in my life, or my children, or my wife, or my life, then I guess I'll settle for what I have to do. What about those people?
Yeah. By the way, I don't condemn people for being swept away by mimetic contagions. Peter was. And again, going back to Gerard, the only thing stronger than the spirit of the age is the Holy Spirit. So if you and I have the ability to stand up against the spirit of the age, regardless of the cost to ourselves, it's merely by God's grace. I recognize that. It's perplexing. Why I get confused is why I see Christian men and women who are so much more beautiful, more holy, and more dignified than I am allow themselves to get swept away, or how the Holy Spirit hasn't protected them from this contagion. It is quite a mystery to me. So I don't condemn them. And then there are others, like you said, who are threatened or have a lot to lose. By the way, I think I haven't been threatened in my life for things that I have advocated for. Of course I have been. In fact, with every 18 months or so, we're called at VPP to do something that puts me and my organization in jeopardy. Yeah. But this, of course, is the most. The hardest part, though, is, I didn't finish. This brings me back to my point. The hardest part isn't the losing the donors, or it's when people you love think that you don't care for them or you're thoughtless to their plight. Yes. Mm-hmm. And you know this about me for years. I have been probably the loudest, although not most heard. I don't have a huge following or platform, but I write for the street. I do my thing. I've been a loud critic about, and I've been on the show talking about it, the frightening rise of Jew hatred in the alt-right. Yeah?
Yeah.
A frightening rise. And I'm very much aware of this. I'm very thoughtful. My organization right now has armed guards outside of synagogues. Mm-hmm. in certain countries. We also have armed guards out in front of mosques and Muslim girls' schools and mostly churches. But I don't think there are too many organizations on the earth that install cameras and put security guards in front of mosques, churches, and synagogues. We do. And so the hardest part for me is when I got this email from this friend who was accusing me of being thoughtless to the plight of Jews, it was easy for me not to really care so much after she listed her defense of her statement by being upset that I would advocate for Palestinian civilians. But the same day that she wrote me that letter, which was my birthday, a young Yazidi girl that my organization has had the privilege to work with since she was rescued from ISIS. And we are like brother and sister. I call her sister. She calls me brother. We're very close. And she posted me a nice birthday message. And then under that message was an Afghan woman who was separated from her baby for almost over a year, when the bomb exploded at Abbey Gate and her family was separated. Her mother and sister, and her mother was holding the baby, were blown one direction, and Marines pulled this young woman and her husband into the airport. And VPP, my organization, was able to, it was one of the most challenging things we've ever done, to get a toddler out of Afghanistan to the United States in the midst of this time period was very challenging. And then she put me a birthday message. And I said, by God's grace, this is where I would want to be. Yesterday I was coming back from a speech that I gave in Michigan. And I was at the Detroit airport, and there was an old man with a cane and an arm in a sling. Talk about it in a tough pickle. He had a cane, his arm in a sling, and metal in his body. And he had to tell that to TSA, and they were just being kind of rude to him. But I was listening to my Promise Bible on my Audible, and I was listening to the epistles about how be kind, be gentle, be thoughtful, because normally I'm very reactive. I normally would have been like, yo, what are you doing to the TSA? But I was like, be a good Christian man. But I was kind of like just looking, like, trying to observe, like, do I need to engage in this man's defense? And he was a tiny little guy, and his tiny little wife. And now I have my Lebanese flag hat. Do we have the Palestinian patches anywhere? Give me one. So I'll show you the patch I had on. We have all these different patches. By the way, if you go to vulnerablepeopleproject.com, you can get these hats, all the places we work. But I was just looking at him. Then he was looking at me, little guy. And he looks up with his cane. He had one arm. He sets the cane on the, what do you call that? The luggage belt, And he just, with his one arm, hugs me. I thought when I was looking at he was Lebanese, I was like, I thought they look like a Lebanese couple. Lebanese are the most beautiful people on earth. Am I allowed to say that? Or is that ethno-nationalism? I've already outed myself as a Filipino ethno-nationalist, and now maybe I'm a Lebanese ethno-nationalist. But he hugged me. And I wear this patch actually to be a sign of contradiction, to annoy people, because I'm just kind of that's my personality. But what I love most is, here it is. This is the patch, right? So, So what our team's wear in Gaza. And but he saw this patch. And I was like so grateful. Little Lebanese man, or maybe Palestinian man, old, elderly, in his mid-80s later, felt comforted. And again, I mean, I don't know how you see me, how the audience sees me, but I kind of think Rida, who's Pakistani, she says I look like a scary, big, conservative white man. Is that about right?
In so many words.
In so many words. So I'm glad that he'll look at me and know that we're not all swept away by hatred towards him. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever threats come my way, like, I really do believe in God. Like, look, I go to war zones. I deliver aid into challenging places. And, it bothers me. I've had to have talks with my wife and kids, and my wife has said it bothers her, and my kids have expressed, when I say I don't really care if I die. Like, when I was in Iraq documenting ISIS, or the different trips, I'm about to go to Lebanon, and I just really don't. And maybe it's by God's, I love life more than anyone on earth. I can promise you that. I have 7 children, 3 grandchildren, and I want to live. I just got my stem cells injected into my knee so I can go do jujitsu and Muay Thai. And I want to live forever. I want to live to be 120. I want to be martyred like in my hundreds. That would be the best way to go. But again, I really just don't care about the social consequences. It doesn't bother me at all. Call me. The whole world can be lined up, spitting and hissing at me, and I just don't really care. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize. But if I'm right, and trust me, I know we are right to stand with women and children whose tent cities are being set on fire, to stand with peacekeepers who are being hammered with chemical weapons. And all of those, they like to use the word shame. Have you noticed that? For those of us who stand with the civilians, we're being told, shame on you, shame. More people have said, shame on you to me. Are you serious? The shame is coming for you. I do a thing at Mass. You know, when we do as a community, for those of you who aren't Catholic, at every Mass, we confess our sins to God. And I do a little spiritual exercise when I do this. I literally picture myself standing before Jesus Christ on Judgment Day when I do this. And I picture heaven in front of me and the abyss of hell behind me. That's what I do every Mass. The shame is coming. I think it's going to come in this life, and it's going to come very soon. But if not, eternity is right there. And I am grateful that God has given me the grace to stand with the Christians in Iraq and Syria and the people of the Uyghur and the Yazidi. And on October 7th, the very first thing I did at VPP is I greenlit the funding of security cameras in countries around the world where Jewish communities I felt were at risk for Islamist attacks. And if there were 17,000 dead children in Tel Aviv, I will be doing the same thing. And I would be fearless. I don't care what the consequences are. There are people I love, very important and close to me in my life, who are Jewish. Yeah. And they disagree with me on this issue, and they feel hurt by me. And that's the hard part for me. Yeah, but I don't care. When I proposed to my wife, again, I don't know if I ever told you this, I said, to be my wife, you have to be willing to be destitute. Because the nature of my work means I will end in absolute poverty. So long as there's bookstores I can loiter in, libraries I can walk into, or a place I can get a $2 cup of coffee and a park bench, I got everything I need in this world.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Jason, and hope that we can. It's funny how indie Christian ethics is when it's supposedly the biggest religion in the world. You know, it's very indie to actually do it and try it for one moment. You know, and you do get into those ethical quandaries about if, you know, like I said, if someone, let's say there's a politician who's like, I want to say something about what's going on to the Gaza kids, and they get a threat, you know, that looks very serious, like your children and family is in danger. At what point, you know, where's the Christian ethic there? I mean, some would say, you know, you lay everything down.
I say that. David, here's the reality. I want to say that. Then, okay, I have this talk with my family. And they look at me like I'm nuts. Of course. My wife is like, are you serious that you would allow harm to come to us? I said, yes. My whole life is ordered to protect my family. And I am hyper vigilant. And I get in trouble all the time because I'm way overprotective of my family. Yeah. But we have a lot of guns. We're in shooting clubs.
Is it as a reaction to doing your line of work, or you were already that way before it?
I think I do my line of work because of how I was raised in my childhood and my real sensitivity to violence and protecting the vulnerable from violence. So I was like this from when I was 2. And that's a whole other story. But my first memory is my grandfather beating the crap out of my grandmother. And I try to protect her. It's my first memory. So, yeah. No, I really am trying to save the world to save my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
The honor of my family is worth more to me than our physical security.
What can people do to try to bring an end to the slaughter of innocents over there and stop these wars when they're looking right now and they're listening to us and they're saying, well, Kamala's not going to do anything to stop it. Trump's not going to do anything to stop it. Thomas Massey is one out of all those other people. So that's not going to get anything done. What can I do? What can I actually do besides be really upset? Or, you know, I mean,
pray and fast.
Yeah.
This is the week of Fatima.
Yeah.
Peace in the world, pray and fast, acts of penance. Also, I would say that if you are a conservative Republican guy in your community, get that little watermelon pin we're a Palestinian. This is so I can have conversations with people.
Yeah.
And also to comfort people who would be afraid of me. The last thing I would want is someone to be afraid of me, a vulnerable person to be afraid of me. So, you're a conservative person. You go to a church that's been swept away by propaganda. Wear your little watermelon lapel pin. The other thing is, I would say go to our website, vulnerablepeopleproject.com, if I may, and support our work to deliver trucks, food. But obviously, the most important and easiest thing we can all do is pray and fast and show public signs of solidarity with the community that people across the ideological spectrum feel perfectly at home dehumanizing.
And somebody needs to talk to Trump and JD Vance because.
Well, Vance is hopeless, but let me say what I think about Trump. He hates war. In the debate, he humanized the Arab victims of war, which was startling because that was his nature. I'm sure his advisors were cringing, but he hates war. And I know he's tap dancing for the donor class right now, and it's pathetic. But I believe that when he wins and he realizes that our weapon systems and tax dollars are being used to foment a genocide, it'll come to an end. I really do think that. Also, our politicians are absolutely subordinated to the Israeli lobby. That's hard to say because it's true. No one will subordinate Donald Trump. So I think when Donald Trump realizes that they think the leash is in their hand and the choke collar's around his neck, he's going to let them know the truth, that we're the United States of America. We're not subordinate to any other country. And he's Donald Trump, and I don't think he's going to be subordinate to any special interest. So I'm hoping it's his pride and his ego and his confidence and his Americanism and his absolute humanism. He loves Palestinians. He loves Jews. This is a man who hates war to his bones.
Yeah.
So this is my hope.
I hope so too. I hope and pray that.
If Kamala wins, it's over. There's no hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only hope, and I hope he stops doing those stupid speeches where he says, if anybody takes me out, it was Iran. We got to obliterate. I'm like, please stop saying that. You have to be smarter than that.
I mean,
you have got to be smarter than that, and people who have a brain know what I'm talking about. You have got to be smarter than that.
Wow. What are you talking about?
Keep saying it over and over. If anybody takes me out, it was Iran. You got to go to war. I'm like, what does that benefit you to say that? Who's writing your speeches, sir? Please. For your own safety. No. Don't say that. Goodness. All right. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. And what's the website for the movie you guys did too? Let's put that in there too.
The new movie, it's not out yet. We just finished. I just got the picture lock from the director. It's Hills Like White Elephants by Ernest Hemingway. I shot it in Spain over the summer.
Okay.
Is that the one you're talking about? Is
there a trailer up? No, I was talking about the one about the Palestinians that you filmed in somewhere else.
Oh, you can see that at vulnerablepeopleproject.com, Betrayed with the Kids. We're still working on that. And it's on the Western Church was silent as the oldest Christian community on earth, the descendants of the apostles' families is being ethnically cleansed. You can see a lot of those clips at vulnerablepeopleproject.com or at our Instagram page, Vulnerable People Project. And you can see the work that we're doing in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nigeria, Iraq, India, around the world serving. Our mission is to stand in solidarity with the most vulnerable people in the world when there is a cost.
If there's and for those who are listening on the audio podcast feeds, Jason Jones Show is the name of Jason's podcast. If you go ahead and subscribe to that and check him out too. Okay.
My new book, The Great Campaign Against the Great Reset, everywhere.
That's right. Very good. All right. Well, you take care and you keep doing what you're doing. You're one of the few people I know besides myself who's willing to just go all the way through it and not pick a side on any side. And I'm just going to join this tribe because I can make a nice lucrative career here. To hell with that. You've got an infinite reason to not do that.
Infinite.
You have eternity to not do that. Okay.
I was telling this to Rita. I said, I have an office. Now my staff has better offices than me. We have offices around the world, but my office is, I love Muay Thai kickboxing, and I used to do it as a young man. But I still train. And I have an office in an MMA office. I have a beautiful wife, 7 children. I make movies. I write books. I have a column. What can they give me? They can take it away because guess what? I go to prison. Guess what I'll do in prison? Government subsidized mission trip. I'm great with that. Whatever. Send me to purgatory. Great. I don't care. There's nothing. You said we have everything to gain. When I do that, when we're as a community confessing our sins, I've been doing it for so many years now. Like I see heaven and I feel hell. This is what's at stake.
Very good. I
I laughed
appreciate
at
it.
them. Yeah, thanks, brother.
Thank you.